Good morning. How you doing?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Not much. Just made kids breakfast. It's a lazy Saturday morning. I'm really happy to connect with you. I know we've been bantering back and forth on Facebook for a while.
The best banter there
Yeah.
is.
Anyways, the reason that I requested this call was because I belong to the wellness committee at work. I'm not sure if I should name the company.
You don't have to. It's fine.
But so April is our wellness month. This is something that we do once a year to encourage people to be healthier. And we do all kinds of different activities such as walks, healthy cooking lessons, um, diet advice. And I thought this interview might be a good thing so that they can get some simple, actionable advice to help them to lose fat. So,
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks for
so,
having me.
so before we dive in, when I first asked you if you might be willing to talk to me, the first question from you was, "Will I have to wear pants?" And I said no because we're going to be recording from the chest up. So, question is, are you wearing pants?
I am currently. I just got done working out actually myself, so
Yeah, I saw your swole Saturday picture.
that's right. It's
Uh,
cold out. It was getting warm, and now it's getting cold again. So it'll eventually warm up for good, I hope. But had to wear pants because it was too cold.
Darn it, you can't show off your quads.
No, I know.
Okay, so for people that don't know you, can you talk a little bit about your background and how you got into what you're doing right now?
Yeah, currently I'm a family and obesity physician, but to backtrack a little bit, I wrestled and played football in college. I first went to Michigan State to play football, ended up wrestling at UNC Chapel Hill as the heavyweight wrestler for the team. And the reason I got into exercise and nutrition as medicine, which is what I'm kind of doing right now with my patients, is because I originally used it to fuel my performance in athletics. But my thought was that if I could just take a fraction of that passion and give it to some of my patients, they could improve their disease and prevent disease.
Hmm.
Because really all that's needed is just a little bit. We don't have to be so obsessed like a lot of people are in the fitness community. So I went to medical school and then went to residency afterwards. That's extra training
Hmm.
to do a specialty, and then eventually did my boards in obesity medicine as well. So I'm basically helping those with obesity try to improve their lifestyle and all that.
Okay, so unlike, let's say, just a general family doctor, you actually specialize in treating obesity.
Yeah, it's pretty much a new field. Everybody thinks about obesity medicine as like bariatric surgery, but now there's this medical portion that's becoming really big. And the boards just kind of came out a couple of years ago, like 4 years ago now. I think my brother was one of the first people to take the boards, and then 2 years later I took them, and now it's continuing to grow. Eventually there'll be fellowships and stuff, but it's perfect for like family doctors and other doctors to start getting into this obesity medicine because it's so prevalent now.
Right, right. So now talk about your typical patient and your approach to helping that patient.
Yeah, so like a patient comes in for a physical and, they may not realize that they have obesity. They think that they're just a normal weight like everyone else. And they may look like it because, our average person that we see is overweight or obese, so a third of the country is in the obese category, and then another third is in the overweight category.
Do
Of
you
course,
feel like do you feel like that's changed the kind of the norm now, so that
yeah,
someone who's a little bit, you know, would have been considered obese several decades ago, now it's just kind of a norm and people don't think he's obese?
yep, and that's exactly what you see. You get a lot of people that are like, yeah, I'm pretty healthy, but if you take their not only their BMI, which I know people will say is not 100% correct, but it's a decent measure in the normal population, not in an athletic population. And then you get their abdominal waist circumference, and you start showing them the cutoffs of what it should be and where these diseases start coming from our obesity. And you show them that, yeah, they're actually in at least the overweight category, and usually in that obese category. It's what I see. So one of the biggest things is actually screening the patients, because they, like you said, it seems normal for them. They look around, and if 2/3 of the population are that way, they think that they're just normal. And our idea of normal has shifted. So you always see those slides from the CDC of like in 1985 there was like whatever less than 10% had obesity or obese, and all of a sudden in 1990, 2000s, you see the map starts changing and with all these colors that they didn't even have, because all of a sudden states have over 35% obesity when they only had less than 10, just 20, 30 years ago. Right. So yeah, all of a sudden it's like, back before, we all knew, it was very obvious, someone that was overweight or obese, and now it just becomes normal, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. So let's say you have a patient that is significantly overweight. What is the approach you take with that person to bring up the topic? Because people are very sensitive, and
So exactly, this is something we have to work on as physicians, because a lot of physicians are actually scared to bring it up, because some physicians have no tact in bringing up, and they'll just be like, "You're fat, you need to lose weight," and they may not say it exactly like that, but the patient hears it like that. So you have to have some tact when bringing it up. So the way I do it is basically say, "Hey, has anybody ever talked to you about nutrition and exercise and maybe weight loss to improve your health?" Or if they have a certain issue like blood pressure or prediabetes or diabetes, I say, "Has anybody ever talked to you about weight loss, nutrition, and exercise to get you off some of these medicines or to improve this disease of yours?" As opposed to saying, "Hey, you see this? You know you're overweight, don't you?" They already know. They think they're normal maybe, but they kind of know, right, too, at the same time. They know they have a little bit of a belly, but they think it may be normal. But if you point out to them that, hey, it's maybe related, would you be interested in losing some weight to improve this? They respond a lot better to saying, "Hey, look at your belly, look at your weight. You need to lose some weight, otherwise you're gonna die," type of thing. And I tell you, a lot of doctors do it that other way, and the patients, they don't respond well. You don't want to be told that you're a piece of crap type of thing. So
it sounds like a critical part of treating patients is not something that you might necessarily learn in medical school. It's kind of an art form that you develop through your practice.
Yeah, and this is exactly the reason for the specialty kind of growing, and I'm actually on a committee to try to teach medical schools on how to fit this into the curriculum, because it's not going away anytime soon. And physicians have to be a big part of the treatment plan.
So let's say the patient is open to suggestions on losing weight, maybe getting more active. What are the couple important things that you try to get them to do?
Yeah, what I pretty much try to do is, there are some blanket guidelines which you could just give them, but I try to find what I call their lowest hanging fruit. Like what about their, and it's usually the nutrition. It's pretty much always the nutrition. It's not the exercise portion, although the exercise is very important. But for losing weight, it's most of the time the diet. So I try to find their lowest hanging fruit. I kind of discuss with them, what do you think is holding you back? And, some of them have no clue. Some of them say, well, I think I go out to fast food a lot. So we start going through their diet just a little bit, a quick 24-hour, 3-day recall of what they ate. And you can kind of find these little patterns. Maybe they do pretty well with breakfast. Maybe they have a job where they always go out for lunch with their colleagues. And then you kind of hone in on that. It's like, oh, you're getting pizza for lunch every day. And then you go home and you and your spouse or whatever cook a decent meal. But it's always that lunch with coworkers. Maybe that's it. So I basically try to find what's the lowest hanging fruit. Maybe it's their whole diet is just crap. Maybe their breakfast, lunch, and dinner are crap.
Hmm.
But if I can find just one thing that's going to make a big difference, then we focus on that.
So it's not about doing a wholesale change, not a New Year resolution when you're gonna completely change your diet and exercise routine. Then it's kind of starting with the one thing that's gonna give you the most bang for the buck.
And it kind of depends on the patient too, because some patients can handle a complete rehaul, but a lot of patients, when they're kind of timid or scared about it at first, and they're a lot of patients are like, oh my God, I'm going to have to eat carrot sticks for lunch type of thing. Like they think they're going to have to eat like a rabbit, and so I take a much milder approach. Some patients come in saying, listen, I want to lose a lot of weight and I want to do it now, and I'm ready to make this big overhaul. And so we can make a big overhaul with them, but I generally don't do that with my patients that I just asked if they're interested. So I want to make sure that they don't get intimidated.
Now, do you think that once they change one small habit, so let's say for lunch they decide to brown bag, and then that gives them some really good results, does that maybe get the momentum rolling where they get excited about that, because they see positive results and incorporate more habits?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the reason for finding what their lowest hanging fruit is, because some patients will go, I think I drink too much Diet Coke, and it's like, no, I promise you, it's not your Diet Coke, because they think that's the one, and some of them have already like made that switch. I started drinking more water instead of Diet Coke, and I'm like, that's great. Actually, studies show that maybe that actually might not do anything. And so I go, well, that's good. I don't ever like say, hey, that's pretty stupid, because that's not going to make sense. So I go, oh, that's great, because it's not going to necessarily hurt them, of course.
Right.
But then we focus in on something else, and if we can find that one thing that's causing their issues, and they start losing that weight, they get what some call activated. All of a sudden, boom, they see it and they're ready to go even further.
Right.
So.
When we conducted a survey at our company, another topic that was at the forefront of everyone's concern is diabetes. And it seems like diabetes and obesity go hand in hand. But is there a different approach you take with someone with diabetes?
So someone with diabetes, a lot of times they're on medicines, and these medicines might even be causing weight gain. For example, like insulin and some of these other medicines called sulfonylureas, which make your pancreas push out more insulin.
Mm-hmm.
So the only different approach I take with those patients is switching those medicines to medicines that actually, some of the newer ones that actually cause weight loss.
I see.
And so actually, because a lot of us say, oh, low carb diets for diabetics and whatever, that works better. But really, I take a very similar approach, because the disease process is very similar. The obesity is kind of on a spectrum with diabetes, because you'll start seeing some of these changes, especially if it's abdominal obesity, some of these insulin resistance changes. So my approach is very, very similar, because if you get them to lose weight, their diabetes is going to start improving.
Now, there's so many different contradictory information out there that's confusing for the layperson. For the person who might be just reading the headlines on a Yahoo article, low carb is better or low fat. I mean, what is your approach to that?
Yeah, I mean, from a practical standpoint, a lower carb diet is easier to teach just because of our environments now.
Mm-hmm.
I try to promote a high plant diet, a lot of vegetables, because I don't think anybody's going to argue that a lot of vegetables in your diet is bad for you. But you start getting into these nuances of, no matter what, they need to be in a lower calorie diet. So you can go to a lower carb, higher fat diet if they tend to like it. Or you could go a lower fat, higher carb diet if they like it. As long as they're lower in calories and they're tolerating it and they're lowering their body weight, it's good. I mean, but what I find though in the clinic is that most people can stick to a lower carb diet easier. And that's what I was talking about, our environment. We have lots of foods out there that, boxed foods that try to make this low-fat claim, but they're what's called highly palatable. So we want to eat a lot of them, and the calories end up adding up. So it kind of goes against everything. So if you just say low carb, they skip those altogether and don't even have to think about it.
Now, you mentioned this palatability factor. Now, there's this notion that there are certain foods that have been engineered to be just addictive, like Lay's potato chips claim, you can't eat just one.
Yeah.
And I find that to be very true.
Yep.
Just to give you a quick little anecdote, I went to a Super Bowl party at a friend's house, and I got insanely stuffed. I mean, my stomach felt like it was about to burst. Yet I am still reaching for those potato chips. I'm like, why am I eating this? And I couldn't stop myself.
Mm-hmm. And that's the cool stuff. It's very cool, but it's unfortunate too. Yeah, there's scientists out there trying to figure out how to make the most palatable, and it has to do with our reward system. So we have this part in our brain that regulates our hunger, our appetite, and our satiety, and then there are other parts in our brain that do this reward. So that same thing, you're stuffed, but yet there's this other part of you that can just keep eating these things, and it has to do with the taste receptors and the dopamine and all these different things, the mouthfeel, the crunchiness, the salty, the starch, and the fat all together for one perfect piece of food almost. And they're kind of like, donuts are almost can be like that because they got the starch and the fat and the sugar and everything like that, and then the potato chips for sure. So yeah, no, that's kind of a problem, is because with our environments the way they are and people designing these foods, it's hard. And actually, those with obesity, they have dysfunctional reward pathways too. Not all of them, but in many. When they do these studies, they have comparing someone who's lean to someone who is obese. The person with obesity more likely has dysfunctional reward system. So that's definitely an issue. So
now, is there a book that you could recommend that kind of summarizes the approaches you take in your clinic?
Yep. So I wrote a book called The Fat Loss Prescription this past summer. I had a month off because I was switching. I moved and I was switching jobs, and since I had a month off, I was like, I might as well write a book because I've read a lot of diet books and from some smart people. I've never liked really any of them. That I like bits and pieces of each of them, but all of them were somewhat esoteric, I think. And so I wanted to write literally just straight to the point, no fluff, but with simple, so enough to where you understand, but not too much to where you just get bored and lose the principle of the book. So yeah, I wrote a book with literally what I do in the clinic, step by step, pretty much.
Now, I did write a review of the book on Amazon, and one of the first things that I said was that I think writing a diet book is not easy because you have to have the target audience in mind. Right. And I felt like this book was aimed towards just the average Joe, who is confused by all the different contradictory information out there, and what are some of the simple, basic things can you do to start losing fat?
Yeah, that was exactly my goal. So I could, we have these patient handouts. We can give patients recommendations, and I want to be able to hand a patient my book like a handout, like a pamphlet, but like an actual book. And then they think it's cool because they see my name there, and I'm like, oh my, that's my doctor. And then they see it on Amazon, so it's kind of cool. It was self-published, but they like it.
Now, what are maybe one or two nuggets from the book that you made, you could maybe hook people with so that they'll be encouraged to read the rest of the story? What are a couple of important things?
Yeah, the one thing that makes my book a little bit different, I put in some of the medical stuff that even other doctors don't know, like literally which medicines, if you are taking some, may be causing weight gain or stopping your weight loss. Those are very important to know, even from a doctor's standpoint, because doctors may not know that. To know that some of these medicines could be causing weight gain. So to understand that, and then also discussing some of the medicines that can help with weight loss, and basically describing how, sometimes you do need some extra help and an extra tool from a medical standpoint, from a medicine. That's kind of one of the big takeaways. The other is you can take smaller steps, but that have big impacts on your weight. So, like, you don't need a complete overhaul, but we do need to find the one thing that's going to bring your calories down and make it sustainable. And that's kind of the other nugget from there is a lot of people can lose weight, but as most people that read a lot of diet books, they lose a lot of weight, gain it back. So my book describes how are we going to get you to lose that weight and keep it off. So that's kind of the goal.
You mentioned calories a few times already. Now, there are some people who take the stance that, as long as you lower the carbs, then calories don't really matter.
Yeah.
What does the scientific research show on that aspect?
Yeah, so it's interesting that some of these rogue doctors kind of go that route, that it's all the carbohydrate, but all these studies, they look closely, and it just doesn't matter. It just you got to get the calories down and somehow stay in that caloric deficit. The hormones are involved, of course, especially with satiety and things like that. But it all comes down to the almighty calorie, and the system's not perfect either, because it depends on which calories are getting absorbed and what you're storing and burning. But in the end, it is a caloric difference, and that's what they show. There's very minimal differences between these low-fat and low carbohydrate diets. I know I'm a low-carb proponent because I do think it's easier to stick to, and it's easier to teach. But when you look at the studies of who actually sticks to what, it just doesn't matter. It's whatever you stick to. Right. So if you can stick to the low fat, which I don't know, I think that's tough in our environment these days, then fine. But if you can't, then maybe a low carb diet. But a lot of people can't stick to that either. So,
I think the issue is that when you say low carb to people, they think zero carb.
Right.
And they think potatoes are off limits. Right. They think any sort of grains are off limits. But I've seen you post, pictures of your meals, and you do include things like potatoes.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, potatoes, when cooked right, not fried in oil and lard and things like that, with lots of salt to make it hyper palatable. If you cook them, boiled, everybody talks about boiled, although that is pretty boring. But boiled potatoes they do fill you up without that many calories. But yeah, I do include carbohydrate. Oatmeal, oats, especially old-fashioned or steel oats, may fill you up a little bit better than the instant oats, but it can be very healthy for you, lower your blood sugar and cholesterol. So, and your body weight.
What is your stance on protein? Because, there's some obesity in my family as well. My mom is significantly overweight, and she hardly eats any sort of meat because she's been led to believe that meat is unhealthy. Mm-hmm. And only recently she's been consuming a little bit more, and it's helping her to, cut down on calories.
Right, so this is kind of the argument that some of the vegans kind of come through. The vegans will kind of say that meat's just bad for you no matter what. And if you do look at some of these population studies that who do the best and who are the healthiest, they don't eat a lot of meat. However, if you're looking at it from someone with obesity or overweight, they do well with higher protein diets. So it's kind of this chicken and the egg thing. I mean, people do better with a higher protein diet when they're trying to lose weight because of satiety reasons and because you're not going to be storing those protein calories as fat as likely. But you can't compare it to those who just have a population that doesn't eat a lot of meat in the first place and has longer longevity, if that makes sense.
But it seems like when you compare some of those populations that are lower protein, higher carbs, I think they tend to be a little more active. They may be in a more rural environment where they have to, work the fields and.
It's hard to compare those studies. I mean, we're never going to have a long randomized control trial, comparing it all. But we try to do our best with looking at these blue zones and stuff like that. These blue zones, they have a pretty high longevity, and they don't eat a lot of meat. However, that doesn't mean that higher protein can't help with losing weight. In fact, that's what our shorter term studies show, that higher protein probably does help with weight loss.
Now, you mentioned there are some doctors out there that recommend low fat. In fact, there's a doctor who wrote books of, wheat belly, grain brain, saying you shouldn't eat grains or any, gluten is really bad for you. Is that good advice?
No, I mean, these books are written to sell, and they find one single thing and they just go haywire on it. And that's their thing. They're trying to sell and they're trying to make money, but the science is just so bad. I mean, like, there may be some biological plausibility to some of it, especially with the changing in the way the grains are and everything like that. But if you cut out wheat and grains, it doesn't automatically you're going to solve obesity.
Right.
And that's clearly been shown. In fact, some people who increase their wheat and grains may lose more weight. So it just I don't even people want to buy this stuff because it seems cool. It's like, oh wow, it's the new thing.
Well, I guess the part that I have trouble with is, let's say someone in our company is, doing this video going, why should I trust this doctor versus, let's say, I don't know, to name names, Dr. Perlmutter who wrote, Grain Brain, and he says grain is bad. He's a doctor too. Mm-hmm. So just having this MD, after their name seems to lend instant credibility. How does one distinguish between someone who is, kind of selling you a bill of goods versus someone who has solid information? Is there any one thing that we can...
Well, pretty much the difference is that they don't even lift.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're a doc who lifts.
Yeah, look. Yeah. You got it.
Well, I did see Dr. Mercola lift. He was using 5-pound dumbbells and taking 30 seconds to lift it. So,
So that's the thing. I mean, you go to these conferences, and you got to understand how research and everything is done. A lot of people have their own agendas to push, but and it's hard. It's hard to trust. Who do you trust? These guys are trying to sell something, and that doesn't automatically make them bad. You have to be a little bit skeptical. So it's like, oh, this guy's got books. He's got all these agendas to push to make his little thing big, like Dr. Perlmutter, Dr. Davis. I don't want to. The thing is, it's just they have an agenda. They're not evidence-based. When you look at evidence-based, you take a more cautious approach, to things, and those things have already been myth busted. You look at these studies, and it's like that's just not true. So when you go to these big conferences, you actually get some of these guys kind of going back and forth at the microphone a little bit. It's interesting, like Dr. Ludwig and Lustig and these guys. They're at some of these conferences I go to, and they kind of get on the microphone, and it's like, okay, it doesn't matter how loud you get. We got to just look at the evidence. There is some biological plausibility to some of the things you say, but it's not just the fructose. It's not just the grains. It's a lot of different things. And so I think to be able to trust somebody, it's hard. It is. I don't even know how to say it, but all I can say is if they're selling something, I'm selling my stupid book, the fat loss prescription, but it's there's not any one single entity in it. I just kind of try to throw what evidence there is about everything for weight loss and kind of put it in a book, whereas they kind of stick to one thing and they go with it.
I just came up with something, maybe I would call it a litmus test.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking that it sounds like the theory or the principle that it is calories that is the main driver of body weight is fairly established fact in your mind. Would that be true to say?
So that you're saying that the calories in the caloric balance,
right? Energy balance is basically yeah. But it seems like there's things like wheat belly, which basically is saying that calories don't necessarily matter as long as you eliminate a certain food.
Right.
So maybe that's a legitimate litmus test where it's not based on the energy balance, but on some sort of magic formula, elimination of one single thing or addition of one single thing.
Yeah, and, I mean, I guess the thing is, we can come up with these hypotheses, and it's fine. Let's do it, and then let's test it. But these things have been tested, though. So it's like, if you come up with these hypotheses, then fine. But if we test it and it's wrong, then stop. You know what I mean? Like but that's the thing. They kind of come up with these things and then tout them as the all new encompassing thing, and it's like, well, this has already been tested. Why are you coming up with this? You have a new, was that not a study? But they can never do that.
Just I think it was about a month ago, I read about a study, and it's the first time I came across it. I don't know how, because I've always been interested in fitness and diet, but apparently there was a study done in 1964 on obese patients where they varied the source of calories, from high fat to high carb, but as long as the caloric level was the same, the level of the rate of fat loss was exactly the same. And it seems like it's been known and established for 50, 60 years.
Right.
Yet we still argue about it.
I know. It's crazy to me. I honestly cannot figure it out. I mean, it's because people want to make money. I honestly think money kind of drives this world. I don't know.
Right.
People want, and fame, fame. People want to be famous for something, the wheat and grains, they want to be known for something, so they came up with their own shtick,
So they demonize a food that's been consumed for thousands of years, and now suddenly it's the thing that is the problem.
Yep, that's kind of what they do. They want to be famous, they want money. I think, in a way, I don't know. They're not doing it for science, they're doing it for other purposes, I think.
Now talk a little bit about your hashtag DocsWhoLift.
So
what is the origin of that, and where are you going with that?
Well, it's kind of one of those things. It formed out of, do you even lift? Because it's the whole argument of, well, do you even lift? You don't even know what you're talking about, type of thing from the body. I think it's the bodybuilding forums or whatever.
That's a common jab among bros who lift, right?
Right. So then I was like, well, it's just funny. Does your doctor even lift? And it's really, all we do is try to promote, my brother and I, we try to promote other doctors who promote exercise as medicine. You don't have to be a fitness model or Greek god or bodybuilder or whatever. Just promote exercise as medicine as opposed to going straight to the prescription pad without asking the patient if they'd be interested in exercise. And promoting other doctors who practice what they preach.
Right, and your book does contain a short section on exercise. You call it a Planet Fitness workout.
Yep, I got a couple workouts in there. I call one of them the Planet Fitness workout because you can do it at Planet Fitness, and you don't need that much to do it. But then there's a more advanced workout if you want to get really into exercise. But yeah.
Of course, Planet Fitness limits how many plates you can put on a bar, apparently.
Yeah. A lot of my patients probably won't have issues with that. They're just beginning, so.
Now, have you actually taken some patients to Planet Fitness?
I did go to Planet Fitness a couple times with a few patients. It just depends on which gym the patient is closest to, like where they live and where they want to have a membership. And then I'll go with them oftentimes and get them used to it. That's the reason why I want my own gym next to my clinic, so I can get patients not intimidated by the gym and get them kind of to show that weights aren't scary and exercise isn't necessarily the devil. So,
Just like with diet, there's endless argument as to what exercise is best.
yeah.
What is, I guess I could kind of guess that you like lifting weights, but what is the best exercise for weight loss and fat loss?
Yeah, generally the best is usually a combination of aerobic, or what people think of cardiovascular training, and then resistance training or weightlifting. It's not any, and the thing is, whatever the person's going to like doing for long term, and they actually find that over 300 minutes of exercise a week is where you get the best results. So some sort of combination. I like lifting weights more. I do more of like 4 days a week of lifting, and then probably 3 days a week of cardiovascular or aerobic training. But some people may do more of the running and then just a couple days of lifting. It really depends on what they like best.
So basically, same thing with diet. It's adherence.
Yep, adherence and preferences. Yep, but just getting them to actually do it and sustain it. Absolutely.
Well, I promised you that this was going to be a short 30-minute talk, and we're coming up on time. So why don't you let people know where they can find you, find your book?
Yep, so my website's drspencer.com, DRSPENCER.com. And you can get my book on Amazon, and it's The Fat Loss Prescription.
Right, great. You're on Facebook, Instagram, or...
Twitter, at Dr. Nadolsky, and then Facebook at Dr. Spencer Nadolsky.
Great. Well, I really appreciate you making the time to talk to me in spite of me trolling you all the time on Facebook.
Appreciate you having me on.
All right, thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, bye-bye.